No, Bowling Green did not leave Beaver Stadium with an upset victory as Penn State wins 34-27, but the Nittany Lions leave this field with more questions about the team than it had before.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
No upsets today here in Happy Valley. Penn State's able to fend off Bowling Green 34-27. This is Locked On Nittany Lions as we are recapping this one from inside of Beaver Stadium. A little bit of wind, a little bit of rain here post-game. I'm Zach Seyko, your host of the podcast, joined by special guests. That is Dylan Callaghan-Croley, editor for Penn State Rivals, and this is associate producer Zane Brancefield to the Locked On Nittany Lions podcast. I mean, my immediate thought process from this was I spent a lot of the week talking about how Penn State, the defense, can take another step forward. They're elite. Tom Allen is comparable, maybe even better than Manny Diaz. And I truly believed that this could have been a shutout performance. And Bowling Green, for a good portion of the game, too good of a portion of the game, dictated the terms on offense. Dylan, what happened? Because that doesn't inspire any confidence in a group where they have not seen the true competition yet.
Yeah, no, Bowling Green comes out and it just punched Penn State in the face repeatedly there in the first half. Devon Thomas, Jay Thomas, after the game was talking about it, he just says that he thinks the Nittany Lions in that first half, just didn't play up to standard, but just too many mistakes, too many missed assignments, everything that we could visually see on the field that was taking place. But I think for me, it was just that the Nittany Lions struggled to make adjustments in that first half. It took to get into halftime for them to truly make adjustments, and those adjustments worked well. It came out in the second half, allowed 3 points, allowed I think maybe about 100 yards in the second half. So the adjustments did work once they happened at halftime, but you can't wait to halftime to make adjustments once you get into the thick of the Big Ten schedule. I don't think today's game necessarily changes my views on this season for Penn State, but for a defense that was expected to be amongst the best in the country, and I still think can be among the best in the country. Yeah. This was a humbling performance, I would say, for them.
It certainly changes my view of the defense. And I want to throw it over to Zay. Again, wind's picking up, as you can see. But it does change my view of the defense, Dylan, because what happens if KJ Winston's not able to go? Right? He left the game in the first quarter, and this defense is insanely talented, but now we're starting to see some glaring issues with the pass rush. 0 sacks against a MAC level team, and that's a MAC title championship contending level team. So I don't want to take away from Bowling Green here. That is a good MAC level football team. However, I feel like Penn State should be able to get some pressure. Connor Bazelak had almost all day back there, unscathed for the most part. Bowling Green played mistake-free football in the first half, and that's why it's unacceptable. In the second half, Penn State made some adjustments, and that is what a college football playoff caliber team is going to do. But right now, I am raising some red flags here about Penn State's defense.
Well, I don't think we should raise all the flags, though, because I don't think the Penn State defense is as bad as what people think. Obviously,
I don't think they're bad, but I get what you're saying.
But people are obviously going to be frustrated, but this Penn State defense didn't make any adjustments the first half, which was a big reason they did so poorly defensively. So after they made those adjustments, they did well. So why they didn't make the adjustments, I have no idea. James Franklin didn't really say much. He said he had to watch tape. So I think that's something Penn State needs to look forward to, and fans should be excited to see what this Penn State team can do. And the defense is still elite. I think they're going to be one of the best teams. They just totally overlooked Bowling Green. They thought Bowling Green wasn't going to be any good. They were going to go into bye week, come back out, play Kent State, and they were all just going to have a great time. Well, obviously that's not what happened. And Penn State, the scoreboard shows for itself. Penn State struggled, and I think Penn State has a lot to work on, especially with their confidence and trying to keep that 1-0 mentality that James Franklin preaches so much.
I think that's a very good point, Zane. I don't know if Penn State said that, well, Bowling Green's not that good. I said that. Well, I mean, I acknowledge that, hey, this is a veteran coach with a veteran team, 30-plus seniors, but it's still Penn State. How can Bowling Green match up to what they, and going on the road like that? But I think you make an excellent point. Let's look at it from the angle of, you go into Morgantown, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of juice to that. So I agree with you to an extent, but I don't think it was more so about Bowling Green. I think it was Penn State within itself looking behind them like, hey, we're feeling great. We just defeated West Virginia. We won with authority. We embarrassed them in Morgantown. And then you don't have that same pick-me-up when it's Bowling Green. It's the MAC. So it's not really so much about the Bowling Green team itself, but I think it is that Penn State just wasn't, they were behind and still kind of processing what had happened in West Virginia. That's my opinion. Dylan?
No, yeah, I think it's hard to say if I think Penn State, overlooked Bowling Green, probably to a degree.
Yeah.
At the same time, historic under James Franklin, Penn State in these games usually comes in, takes care of business, and
Appalachian State,
and wins.
Buffalo.
But once in a while they do have a hiccup like this. That Appalachian State game, that Buffalo game, they do have those hiccups. That App State team, of course, was a very good App State team. I think that Buffalo team was also obviously a great one. Was Andy Kotelnicki part of that Buffalo team?
He was. Yeah. He was actually. So he's familiar with this territory.
Yeah, it was interesting. I wonder if on the Bowling Green side, maybe everybody came this week talking about Tom Allen knows Bowling Green's quarterback Connor Bazelak really well because he was his quarterback in Indiana, but at the same time, Connor knows how the Tom Allen defense works really well from that time as well. So I wonder how much that went into the game plan for Bowling Green this week. I'm not saying that's an excuse for giving up 27 points and going 24 in the first half.
Right.
It was a poor performance. Tom Allen had some questionable play calls. I mean, I think there was a third and medium they had in the first half. The DBs were playing about 10 yards off the ball. I don't understand all the play calls for Tom Allen, but for Penn State at one point or another in this game, it just became survive and advance. We saw that a lot in college football last week. I mean, Michigan struggled with Fresno State last week. Now Michigan got their butts whipped by Texas today, but Oregon struggled with Idaho. Perhaps in a similar mentality-wise to Penn State. We were talking about that coming into today's game, or that game, Oregon, we still conceive as a college football playoff contender, as one of the best teams in the Big Ten. I still perceive Penn State as one of the best teams in the Big Ten in college football playoff contender after today. But at the same time, there are things that are going to have to be cleaned up. I think, the biggest takeaway, say, defensively, is that the linebacker depth is definitely a concern going forward.
Yes.
Just after Tony Rojas, there's not a lot. Kobe King is good, but I mean, when you're putting out Dominic DeLuca, Tyler Ellison, those types on a consistent basis, it can get a little bit shaky. And then, that safety room depth without KJ Winston, we'll see what his availability is going forward, is a little, shallow as well.
I do think we need to pivot to the offense now, because unlike last season where the defense time and time again bailed out Penn State's offense, the roles reversed. Penn State's offense bailed out the defense today, and aside from an interception, Drew Allar was flawless. Guys, I hope you don't mind. I got to pay some bills, so when we come back from the other side of this break, we'll talk about just how far Drew Allar has come as a quarterback and this Andy Kotelnicki Penn State offense. And today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to make sure that you have the quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you cannot find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn understands that small businesses wear tons and tons of hats and may not necessarily have the time to devote to hiring. That's why they constantly find ways to make the process easier and more intuitive. And it's why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Be one of them. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So the final score, 34-27, and Penn State's offense, a big part of why they were able to win today, why they were able to fend off the upset. And Drew Allar does look like that NFL caliber quarterback, does look like a future top 10 pick. He's in the conversation for the number 1 overall pick. That is a separate conversation down the road. But the throws that he was making, the confidence that he had, he was willing to take risks, and he was hitting his throws, right? The wide receivers dropped some of the passes. I gave credit to Bowling Green's secondary. They have future NFL talent. For example, Jordan Oladokin I think he made the play that it was against Trey Wallace that set up almost another deep touchdown. There was the offensive pass interference again that I think the referees were looking for from Amari Evans. They ended up calling it with a little bit of a push off. Again, debatable, but the point here is that Drew Allar was doing everything right. Now, aside from that interception, I'm glad that happened earlier in the season, because remember, there was the whole streak of games from last season and he had to protect that, but now that's out of the way again, and I don't think there wasn't this dark cloud over it. Drew Allar throwing an interception was meaningless compared to the way it was last season, Dylan.
Yeah, no, I mean, Drew had not a perfect day, but it was pretty.
I thought it was pretty close.
Pretty close. You know, he had the one interception in the corner of the end zone over here. Looking back on it, it looked like he thought he had man coverage there with Harrison Wallace getting open.
Good play by the defensive back.
And then the DB who was on lane, Clifford, just bailed on Clifford, dropped back, and was able to pick it off.
Great play.
So, I mean, he wants that one back, but outside of that, it was a pretty good day. I mean, 209 passing yards, I think. 204 passing yards.
13-20.
13-20, and you talk about the deep ball to Amari Evans that got caught off to the OPI. Trey Wallace dropped would have been close to a touchdown on the other side of the field in third quarter.
That's a great play by Oladokin.
Yeah, but it was both of those throws were perfect from Drew. Yeah. Drew had several perfect throws today that really showed off his arm talent. But I mean, between those two plays, the OPI and the drop, you're talking about another 90 yards of passing there that would have been added to that. But Drew this one of his better performances overall, I think. And he responded well from that interception, I thought. Last year, you don't know how he would have responded from that. But I also don't know if last year he would have taken that chance either.
Right. That's what I mean by saying a different, confident Drew Allar. And then, Zane, there's the running ability of Drew Allar. No, I think he was 7 carries for 7 yards. There were a couple sacks that were factored into that, right? Bowling Green's pass rush did get home and did take down Drew Allar. But Drew is still for someone that's 6'5", 235 pounds, and he is shifty, dynamic within the confines of a pocket. He's able to extend plays, and there was that one instance where I know he ended up taking a very long sack. He should have just thrown the ball away. So that's something you'd like to see him clean up, Zane. But it's the way that he continues to extend plays, cause headaches for whoever's chasing after him, and it's just not easy, and you still have to factor him in. He had that touchdown run himself in the game where he ran it in and took it in for a touchdown with his legs. So there it is again, dual threat quarterback Drew Allar, and it just makes him more dynamic as a quarterback overall, and what NFL teams are going to look for in the future.
Absolutely. I think Drew Allar's done a great job. His development has been unreal this season, working over the summer, and his confidence especially. But I don't think Drew Allar's the only person we should be talking about on the offense. Because if you look at Tyler Warren, who set a career or a school record here today of receiving yards by tight end. He had an incredible game. Now, he didn't have a touchdown, but he had over 100 yards receiving, and I thought he looked really good. Drew Allar said himself that he's so consistent and he's such a big body, a big target to throw to, and Franklin keeps preaching that he's a complete tight end. I think we saw that today. We've heard from the running backs that he's great on the blocking for the running game. He's great at catching the ball. He's great at drawing defenders so other people can open. So I thought Tyler Warren had a great game, as well as the rushing attack of Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, who I think are better than people think they are. They both had over 100 yards. Nick Singleton averaged 9.2, and Katron Allen averaged 7.2 carry, like 7.2 yards per carry.
Yeah.
And so I thought they looked incredible. Like, what do? You take Nick Singleton out of the game, and someone thinks, oh, the next guy can't do it. Well, Katron Allen can also run for 100 yards. So I think that gives Penn State such a dynamic look because they can run the ball, they can throw the ball, and if they want to throw people off, they put Bo Prabula in a couple times to run the ball.
Sure.
And the running backs can even catch the ball. Nick Singleton had a receiving touchdown again today.
Yeah.
Katron had one last week, almost had one today.
Right.
I think this Penn State team has so many playmakers because we didn't even see much of Trey Wallace, and this Penn State team still put up 34 points. And I think that goes to show that it's hard for teams to cover this Penn State team because they have so many different explosive weapons.
That's interesting to me, Zane, because you say that as, okay, Penn State is dynamic in its offense, that they can go to Trey Wallace one day, Tyler Warren another day, Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen are that duo that's really tough to stop, the Thunder and Lightning. And for Penn State, I still have my concerns about wide receivers because Julian Fleming had the one reception, Amari Evans had a reception, and he had a drop. There was the offensive pass interference. Trey Wallace was taken out of the game. Bowling Green is still defensively going to be susceptible to a superstar performance from a Tyler Warren in this case. Same thing with West Virginia and Trey Wallace. When you have a more competent defense, USC down the road, especially Ohio State, which is a college football championship caliber team. Dylan, I'm just still not. I have so much optimism for this offense, and they can continue to make progress. But I still need to see more diversity that Zane is referring to. But he has confidence in it. I don't.
I'm probably somewhere in between you guys. I mean, they got the quarterback that which start at all but maybe 5-6 schools in the country. I think there's 5-6 quarterbacks out there that you could argue
have their preference.
Yeah, you could argue you would take maybe over Drew.
If that quarterback wasn't there, they would take Drew Allar in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
133 schools would take Drew in a heartbeat if
exactly
if their starting quarterbacks weren't there. But you got one of the best running back duos in the country without a doubt. The wide receiver room, I think, is still a concern for me.
Yes.
They are showing signs of improvement from last year. They're getting open on a consistent basis. But, again, it's just not been a lot of, like you said, diversity.
It's a work in progress.
And who's getting those targets. I mean, today it was looking at it,
it was just Tyler Warren.
Yeah, Tyler Warren had 8 catches. Amari Evans had 2. Fleming had 1.
Nobody else.
Wallace was
Nobody
targeted
else.
a couple times. We heard a lot about Lane Clifford coming this season. This is 2 back-to-back quiet games. I know it's beyond just the numbers, but you're going to have to get more guys involved once you get deeper in the season. Now, you got Tyler Warren you feel really good about. Khalil Dinkins, I think they feel good about. Beyond that now, it's a little bit of question marks on the worth noted. Andrew Albier out today. He was seen on crutches on the sideline. Availability going forward is unknown. James Franklin said that was an injury that happened recently. So we'll see how his availability is going forward. There's Penn State, they get that bye week. But not always a great sign, obviously, to be on crutches.
Right.
So we'll see what happens there. If he can't go going forward for a little bit, Khalil Dinkins steps in that number 2 role. And they probably are forced to, greenlight Luke Reynolds, who's now played the first 2 games of the season. At this point, you only have 2 more games to work with before you burn that red shirt.
It's going to happen.
And then on the offensive line, I would say left tackle has become a major question mark, I think, at this point. Drew Shelton, struggled last year at times. He struggled in that Peach Bowl massively. Last week against West Virginia was not great. And today he struggled again. We saw Nolan Rucci at left tackle towards the end of the game, and I think that's going to be something to monitor going forward.
Yeah, good point.
Anthony Donka on that right side seems to be doing a really good job.
Yep.
Nick Dawkins was one of the bigger question marks coming into the season.
Yep.
Through 2 games, I think he's been pretty all right. But got to figure out that left tackle spot. because that was where a lot of the pressure was coming from today.
Guys, if you don't mind, I got to take one more break here on this recap podcast. When we come back, just some final takeaways. Dylan already brought up the offensive line, other things that they need to work on going into the bye week, and then Penn State right after that. That's coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. You got to download the Game Time app because buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier than before. Game Time Picks filters out all of the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. And if you go to the Game Time app right now, you can see tickets for Penn State versus Kent State. And I know there's a bye week wedged in there, but you can already get tickets for that game. And if you sort by the Game Time Picks deals, they have one right now going for $16 in the lower end zone. You can get deals like that on the Game Time app. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Term supply. Again, create that account and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Dylan, I just want to pick up from the offensive line point because I still said the chemistry throughout the week that they were a work in progress, and this is the group that I had circled on my list. You know, them, the wide receivers, and the linebackers, right? We kind of all addressed them that this was a big game for them, and I still walk away with tons and tons of question marks. You mentioned Drew Shelton. We saw that Tony Rojas made a play and is starting to come along. Dom DeLuca looked okay. He got banged up in the middle of a punt play there. But the linebackers, still, there's not a lot of reassurance there. And then what if KJ Winston? He's an extension of the linebacker group because of how much he plays close to the box. Again, Bowling Green was able to expose the cover 3 man looks that Penn State was doing defensively. What happens if the linebackers become more of a liability? James Franklin has already addressed that there are depth concerns for that group. So even though there is a bye week coming up, the offensive line still has serious question marks. What are you doing at left tackle moving forward? Pass protection was not as good as it was against West Virginia, but the run game was better. But I also think that's a byproduct, Zane, of just Bowling Green runs a 3-3-5. That's 6 guys naturally in the box. You are built to try to defend the pass. So it's good that Penn State's passing offense with Drew and Tyler Warren had that success because that's what their focus is. And the ground game, again, kind of a byproduct of the fact that you just had open opportunities. So if they missed them, I'd really be concerned here. So those are my overall takeaways still, that the linebackers, the offensive line, and just kind of depth in general, going in addition to the wide receivers, depth in general. If Penn State is missing key players for the teams that will make you pay for subtle mistakes, it's not going to go well.
Actually, I totally agree with you. I was going to say the exact same thing, that depth is the overall issue with this Penn State team. They have a couple very strong points.
At select positions. Positions.
But, like, you get past a few others and it's kind of weak. Like, safety can get a little weak after, like, losing. You got, like, KJ, you got Jalen Reed, and Cam Miller if you want to throw him back there, but he's really a natural cornerback. So that's kind of weak. The linebackers are weak. Obviously, the offensive line we thought would be strong, but it's looking like that could.
They have good depth. They just it's still figuring out that rotation.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple question marks for Penn State here, as James Franklin said. This is a game they won that they get to go and work on a whole lot of stuff versus losing and having to work on a whole lot of stuff. Because now they have a bye week before they face Kent State on the 21st.
Yep.
So I think Penn State's in a decent position considering everything they have. It can hopefully get better in time to prepare for some big-name competition like Illinois or Ohio State or USC.
Zane, I think you make a lot of excellent points here. And I'm not trying to sound all doom and gloom, but it's one thing if you have this performance against Ohio State, USC, or frankly, other Big Ten opponents. I want to give more respect to Bowling Green because they certainly deserve it. But Dylan, this happened against a MAC conference team. I still have burning questions about the position groups that I circled on the depth chart: linebacker, wide receiver, and linebacker, wide receiver, offensive line. All of those groups still didn't give me a lot of reassurance if I'm watching this as a Penn State spectator.
No, yeah, I think if you're a Penn State fan, there's 2 ways to look at it. One, you survived in advance, and in today's college football, especially in the 12-team playoff now. It's all about surviving and advancing.
Yeah.
You know, with a win here, you still have that room for error down the road when your schedule does intensify here in about a month. On the other side, yeah, you struggled with a MAC team, a very good MAC team.
They will contend for a conference title.
They're voted third. They voted in the preseason poll to finish third, right behind Miami of Ohio and I forget the other first one honestly. But either way, this is a team that's going to compete for a MAC title. But at the same time, you should beat these opponents now
Convincingly.
Yeah, as we're recording this now, Notre Dame is struggling with Northern Illinois.
Yeah.
So it's not, only a Penn State problem. We saw last week Oregon struggle with Idaho, an FCS opponent.
Yeah.
These things do happen. But yeah, a lot of questions were created with this performance today, and they have a lot to clean up. But luckily for them, they got a bye week coming up. Then they got Kent State, which is a bad team.
Another MAC team. Another MAC team. Should we be concerned,
Another
Dylan?
MAC team, but by no means a good MAC team. A MAC team that is in the process of losing to an FCS team as we record this. And then they got Illinois, a team they should beat, UCLA, a team they should beat.
Right.
Both teams they do not need to bring their A game necessarily to beat. It's all about getting ready, getting healthy for that October 12th matchup against USC in Los Angeles. They got to get healthy for that. They got to work out the kinks defensively, offensively. It's all about getting ready for that, because starting with that game, you got a 4 or 5 game stretch there where it's looking pretty difficult. USC, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Washington, all within 5 weeks. Got a bye week in there, but outside that, it's going to be a tough one. They're going to have to break their A game week in and week out during that stretch. So
Absolutely.
they got some time to work on things,
Yes.
but this is definitely a game that Penn State fans should be happy with a win, but you're definitely not feeling as confident as you were, I would say, if you're a Penn State fan coming out of last week's win over West Virginia.
To sum it all up, I mean, gentlemen, week 2 for Penn State is in the books. Hey, Bowling Green deserves a lot more credit than they were given on this podcast, and I think in general they can compete with some serious teams, including college football playoff contenders. The offense is still trending in the right direction. I still need to see more, and then the defense. I'm going to have to pump the brakes on, hey, they're elite. They're taking a step forward. This might be better than a Manny Diaz group. They have their own flaws that are different from the 2023 group, but they're still one of the best in the country. We can say that with confidence. And that'll do it for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Special guests here. That's Dylan Callaghan-Croley, Penn State Rivals editor. This is Zane Brancefield, associate producer to the podcast here. My name is Zach Seyko, your host of the show. Please let us know your feedbacks, comments, your thoughts about this game. I'd appreciate it if you left a like on this episode and share it with friends and family. And if you're not already, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams.